Okay, live once again from SEMA 2019. This is Fuel Cult. Joining me on my left-hand side is Patrick Dex, my trusty hetero life mate to lift the line from Jay and Silent Bob.
CC, senor.
And then, we've got Matt from V12LS.com to my right. And you guys weren't always known as V12LS, correct?
Well, yeah, that's actually the brand of our hero product.
Yeah.
So our company is Racecast Engineering, and we've been casting products for sort of 15 years down under. But we did a lot of Mazda rotary stuff, or as we'd say in Australia, Mazda rotary stuff.
Yeah.
And what we sort of found is back then when we were starting this, the whole V8 or V12 in our case, but the piston versus rotary, people sort of had camps and whatever. And now what we found has been really nice is our goal was always to bring the brands back together, bring Racecast Engineering. And so V12LS is effectively the brand of our hero product, which is our V12.
Yeah, and what a brand it is. I mean, it's funny that you come on this one because we just had Rob Ferretti on, who, Rob's known for a bunch of things, but one of them is his kind of crazy turbocharged Corvette.
Yeah.
And, he's going up against Rob Don on a bet who's building that absolutely insane four-rotor car.
Absolutely. I love Rob's car.
You coming from the Mazda background, you're like, that's an impressive piece of engineering, is it not?
Oh, definitely for sure. And we're actually about to release a 20B rotor plate that's stronger than what Mazda did. It's a couple of months away. So I don't mean to plug the product too much there. I could jump right in that. But yeah.
Please plug the product.
That's all right. That's all right. It's cool what Rob's done. I've followed Rob for years. I think in the rotary community, which is a smaller community,
he's a hero.
Everyone knows him. Yeah. And rightly so. He's earned his place there. And this four-wheel drive RX-7 is incredible. Also, Rob Ferretti, what he does is cool. I like how far he's pushed that car with the turbos, and you may actually see something between us and Rob, some work there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, either of them, actually.
Rob had given me a little heads up on, that. So let's get into what that is. First, actually, I want to ask first, where are you guys located in Australia?
Yeah, Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah, so the foundry's in Melbourne, machine shop's in Melbourne, but we're actually from a small country town, country boys.
Yeah. Well, that's not much. I mean, it's funny. Like, Australia, it's an awful lot like the States. Everybody lives on the coast, and there's nothing in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been there. I don't know that for a fact. But,
yeah. I mean, we got a bigger population, but other than that, it's a lot of similarities between the two countries.
For sure. Certainly in the car scene as well.
Well, I came from a big appreciation for Holden because I bought myself, what you guys know as a Monaro.
Yes.
I had one here as GTO. I love that car to death. And that's when I really got, I read up on that car before it came out, but, that's really when I got indoctrinated into it. I'm like, oh, these guys know how to build a chassis.
Yeah.
Because I believe that the GM engineers in Australia did the 5th gen Camaro as well.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that's right.
So, it's some impressive work. It's a damn shame, though, that both Ford and GM have pulled out of, doing their local models. But economies of scale and all, it's a small market to build.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the automakers are going that way. They're going to global models. It makes sense from a business perspective, and as a business person, I can understand that. As an enthusiast, it's sad.
I mean, it was an insane business proposition what they were doing before. It makes no sense, but I did love the product.
But the really sad thing is we don't have utes anymore, right? So they start with the utes. So there were some local specific things, being the ute, which is business at the back and party at the front. So it's the opposite of the mullet.
I'm trying to think. You probably still have a Subaru option though, don't you?
Oh, what's out there in a 2-wheel drive ute? I don't know. I'm not sure, actually. There's a little Subaru. I remember the old ones. We had one on the farm, Subaru Brumby. Pretty cool.
Yeah, we had them here. I don't know if it's the same model, but we had the Subaru Brat here.
Yeah, I think that is like that, yeah.
And we used to have, of course, the El Caminos and the Rancheros and everything. So you guys had it first, though.
I don't, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I have heard many debates. You do? Oh, good.
I've heard the old pig farmer story.
Oh, yeah.
And, the idea was that, pig farmers wanted a way to take their animals to market, and pickup trucks weren't such a thing there, as they aren't in most of the world other than here.
Yeah.
So they just started throwing beds on the back of their sedans.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the story I got anyway.
Yeah, and look, it's probably true. I've heard that so many times.
Farmers
which came first, the story or the truth.
Yeah, who knows? But we've got one, and in Australia we're building a HQ Holden Ute right now.
Oh, that's got to be fun.
Yeah, it's on the build project list. Everyone's got the shed full of projects. I'm sure that but that one we're going to get to, we promise.
Do you have any personal project cars? Anything that you're building for your own fun?
We always do. I suppose you could call the Ute a personal project car in a way. Just finished up a Mustang before I left the United States. I lived in the United States for 9 years, and I knew getting 65 Mustang parts in Australia would be really difficult. So just finished that up, and we took that on Hot Rod Power Tour 2 years ago. And then since then, the last one we just did, we actually, I got a bit drunk at PRI, as you do, and was out with David Freiberger, and I woke up with an RX-7. And
he'll talk you to buying anything just now.
And then I thought about it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it was based on the West Coast, but yeah, we shifted over, and so I'd gone back to Australia by that point, and it turned up in Maryland, and I came back over probably best part of a month before Power Tour, and we, back to the rotary thing, we turbocharged that and fixed all the suspension and the brakes and all the things they screwed up on the Car and Roadkill episode, and got that thing going, and we took it on Power Tour, put some methanol in it to keep the intake temps down, and took it down the drag strip at the end of the thing. It only ran 13s. I mean, it's only a little 12A with a little turbo on it, but it's a lot of fun. So, we are car guys too. We know we don't just have a business casting for this industry. We're always building our own stuff.
Okay, so you were into Mazdas, and at some point you got into the LS architecture.
Yeah.
What project got you started on that?
Yeah, what sparked this monster build?
Well, I wouldn't say back to the end of Mazdas. I'd say we're into cars in general,
right? And
there's always been sort of two types of car people. There's people that have a camp, and there's people who just love cars and love different engineering. And we're definitely in that one.
They're companies. They're multinational corporations. They have no loyalty to you. You shouldn't to them.
No, we just like building stuff and building cool stuff and working with cool engines. So in Australia, there's the Holden Commodore, which we were just talking a little bit about. The Holden Commodore came with the Gen 3, they called it down there, which it is the third generation LS.
We call it the Gen 3
Gen 3 here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the Gen 3 V8s, so they're just starting to get to the point where you could find them in junkyards. And
the iron block motors and that stuff that were the cheap ones.
We got way more alloy block engines in Australia.
Because all the trucks here got iron blocked, and it was the Camaros and the Vets that got the aluminum ones.
Yeah, and the iron stuff's really, really good. So we cast for the V12s. We do an iron and aluminium. I'll say aluminum or aluminium.
Take your pick.
All right.
You can go to your native. We know we're the only ones that do it, us and the Canadians.
Well, we just shorten it to alloy anyway. So we got the alloy block and the iron block. And for the same reasons where you would use an iron block V8, you'd use the iron block V12. So
big boost, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one down in the Wyseco booth right there. I'll make sure you got a photo of it if you splice it in.
I actually saw it.
Oh, you saw it already? Yeah. And you can see it's got Siamese bores. We actually, you can't see it. There's not Perspex everywhere, but there's Perspex opening a lot of the spots. You can see we've webbed the banks together, which is where those blocks do eventually split open. And we figure with 4 more horsepower of cylinders producing that horsepower, it's even more likely people are going to push these guys even further. So obviously we do a billet crank. And so, we're about to start really pushing the numbers with that one. And, so Josh is about to put 2 Magnusons on that. So in early next year.
Which is just a silly-looking setup. You're like, okay, this is excessive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and he's putting it in a ute. He's putting it in a Datsun ute, which is the most absurd thing. But he's a friend of ours. We share a workshop in Melbourne, actually, one of our workshops.
Was he too good to put 2 SR4s together to make it straight 8?
That's a good idea, actually. You should do that.
It would be fun.
Yeah.
Well, Buick used to do straight 8s here. Buick and Cadillac did. So very rare engine configuration, obviously.
Yeah, I think straight 8s are cool. I think all things that are a bit different are cool. And sort of going back to why this existed and how this happened. We were at SEMA, you guys probably remember, about 5 years ago, and it was right at the height of LS swaps, but it was at the height of LS swaps still with the damn plastic covers on them. Like, not even fancy induction.
Well, because they ripped them out of the production cars. They went and bought a car, pulled the motor out, and chucked it into something else.
Yeah, and we were here, and it was our first SEMA, and we're seeing these cars, and these are builders that we've admired from afar for years, and we finally got to see some of their builds. And we walk around, and we go, look, there's not a single panel on this thing that hasn't been re-engineered.
But the engine is...
And what's with the crate motor from the parts counter? You know,
I'll tell you what it is with some of the, especially cars that come from California, is that you can't register them without being emissions compliant. So a lot of them buy the E-Rod motors directly from General Motors, and then they don't have to worry about it, which is more of a thing for whomever their customer is, just because they want to be able to use it. But,
and I also think there are certain applications where it's really, really good. So if you look at the Icon 4x4s they do. That's
John Ward is one of my favorite guests of all time I've had on the show. Their work is insane.
Absolutely. And for that build, he does a few over-the-top builds where he does do interesting other motors. I also like what he's doing with electric. But back to a crate motor LS. using a factory ECU for a car that's built like that you don't need to worry when you turn the key at all. It's very hard to reproduce factory tuning. Think how many hours they've put into tuning those ECUs and passing emissions. So definitely those applications are right.
But it's boring when it's boring when it's in a $500,000 chassis.
Oh yeah. So I remember then the next SEMA we were just starting to warm up and start to build our product and we helped push a car in actually through that doorway just over there, and it was a Mustang and they were so struggling. We're like, yeah, we'll help you push, and then I said to the guys, this is a really nice Mustang. Like I said, I've built one recently. Like, it's a really nice Mustang. And the guy goes, yep, big step for our shop. This was our first $1 million build. And I just almost fell over. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. If people are now doing $1 million builds and they're engineering a car that not one single piece of suspension or panel work is the same as what was originally done, why isn't that same level of craziness and engineering happening under the hood? And I don't mean just by putting a big supercharger on or doing something like that. I mean, well, why can't you have an engine that doesn't exist? So then the next year we came back to SEMA and we had a prototype that was cut. And the reason we did that, even though we have, access to the foundry and all the skills, is there's a huge amount of work to tool up to do it. So we wanted to see, even though theoretically a V12 balances at any bank angle, it's one of the biggest questions I get online. That's absolutely theoretically true.
That's a big motor making a lot of assumptions.
Exactly.
And I was
right.
asked too, did you run into tremendous vibration issues when you're trying to fuse two motors together?
Oh, well, when we fused the two engines together, absolutely not. It was really the biggest difference. The biggest challenge with that, and the reason that we never commercialized a welded engine. And I wouldn't recommend anyone does.
No, weld penetration doesn't go that deep.
Yeah, exactly. So weld penetration, you do get some weepage in places. We do a vacuum. We did some vacuum impregnation, which also sort of helps against that.
But I mean, proof of concept.
But proof of concept was a lot of fun. And funnily enough, one of the original welded ones is actually still getting around in a car, which still amazes me. I'm talking to the guy who's got it in his car. And
is it relatively low stressed in that application?
No, I think so. Yeah. But I've told him many times, I was like, look, I'll do your cost price block if you want it, because one day. But anyway, so yeah, that's what really got us on to doing the castings. And when we saw that car, it was a nice enough car, but there were definitely more custom cars inside the show. It was only an outside car. And when we talked to Evan, who was at the Enthusiast Network at the time, he said, this was the most socially shared car yesterday at the show. Like, we tracked that. And we said, maybe people should be putting different engines and things like Steve Morris engines, Sonny Leonard's, Ryan Falconer, our engine, of course, really help people take their car to the next level. And if you've got a car where everything's custom, why not have an engine that's completely unique? Yeah. So I can get technical and talk about vibration if you'd like. It's a big topic, but
we can totally get there.
Please do.
I think the thing that I'm most interested in is, obviously you want to go for a unique build on that, and the first thing is are you able to utilize all of the regular factory pistons and the aftermarket options?
Sure.
And is your crank throw, is it the same?
Yep.
Is your rod length the same? Everything?
Yeah.
What's your compression that you're running on the motors that you're selling out of the box right now?
Yeah, they're good questions. So everything other than the block, heads, crank, and cam, and I suppose valve covers and some lightweight things.
Just 2/3 of the engine.
Yeah, so block, heads, crank, and cam are products that we do ourselves. So when we sell an engine builder kit, that's exactly what it is. After that, you can go down to your local parts store and pick up what you need. Now, what we use in the engines that you see here today, we use a K1 rod, 6.125-inch rod, so a standard LSX rod. Works really well. They've worked great in all our applications so far. And we use a JE piston for LS. That gives us a 10.2 compression ratio with our head.
Right?
Off-the-shelf part. Yeah. Off-the-shelf rings. Obviously, you've got to gap them and stuff. But, it makes putting these things together. We use a link bar, a comp cams, link bar, short travel hydraulic lifter. I found those to be really good. And
very, very normal part.
Oh, it's off the shelf. I mean, yeah, we get them from our distributors. So
easy to maintain.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to rebuild one of these, it's easy. It's part of the beauty of it, is that you can use all the same thing. Obviously, measure push rod length right, and good to go.
So when it actually came time to, before I even touch there, the cylinder heads.
Yes.
What are they modeled after? Are they modeled after the LS3 style? Are they modeled after the LS7 style? Which way did you go?
The LS7/LSX.
Okay.
So the biggest, and we figured we're only going to make one mold. So why not go big or go home?
Yeah.
Yeah. We use, we hear people, and I feel sorry for GM on this, because people, say, oh, you've done LS7, what about the valve issue? I was like, look, that was extremely small percentage of very vocal people that had an issue with the valve.
The factory sodium-filled valves.
Right.
You're not using those, it's not a problem.
And we're not, too. And so firstly, it's no way near the sort of issue that people make it out to be. But secondly, yes, we use a nice valve from our cylinder head. The guy who built our cylinder heads, he's proven them in thousands of race engines, and it's a custom-made valve, but it's the same as that.
And let's be honest, I mean, a good valve design is it's important, but it's not rocket science.
Oh, no.
There are a lot of talented engineers and machinists that can make a perfectly suitable valve for a lot of engines.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot about this engine, back to not being about rocket science. It's really simple. And one of the reasons I like it, I get off on doing turbochargers and different fuels and mixed fuels and, ethanol as a secondary level of injectional methanol. And all of this, I really, as a car nerd, I love doing that. There's also something to be said for really, really simple. So the engine's in the Factory 5 car at SEMA today. It made 764 horsepower without breaking a sweat, with a tiny little camshaft that's somewhere in the range that you can even buy in the, it's between the second biggest and the biggest LS3. It's not even as big as the cam in the highest spec LS3 from GM.
Right.
So it's super, super tame, super streetable. And then you've just got, cam in block, push rods, keeps all the weight low. It's just super simple.
Who does your cam?
We got a guy named Clive.
Okay.
Everybody needs a guy named Clive.
if you're either Aussie or you're British, everybody knows a guy named Clive.
Yeah. Just a machinist, that's the name. Mm-hmm. If you have your own personal machinist making you a product, you want him to be named Clive.
Yeah, Clive's awesome. Clive has a camshaft grinder in Melbourne. If you're in Australia and you've had custom cams done, Clive Cams. Okay. His business, but
I'm wondering
Clive.
I'm wondering what that phone call's like. So I need you to reproduce an LS3 cam, but I need a few extra cylinders on it.
I need it twice as long, please.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to a couple of people about the people who were involved with us right at the start. Mm-hmm. Now, in hindsight, when I look back on it, I'm amazed they didn't just tell us, nah, bugger off. you guys go and do your own thing.
To be very honest, when I saw that car, when I saw that car years ago, I'm like, this is a very cool concept. I'll be very surprised if we see it come to market, because manufacturing something like this is not an easy feat.
Yeah, it is viable, and we've proven that. But at the end of the day, while it is a profitable business, it's, as everyone knows in this industry, it is still a big element of labor of love and passion involved with this. We could have gone and found something else to spend 4 years of our lives that had nothing to do with the automotive industry, and probably done a lot better with the amount of energy. But then there wouldn't be a V12LS, and 2 in Central Hall makes us proud. And it's awesome.
I mean, at the very least, you'll be able to walk into any place like this and go, "You ever see the V12LS? That was mine."
Yeah, you have a calling card no matter where you go.
Well, technically, I don't have one yet, so the Ute will.
Yeah.
Well, my brother and I, we had one casting come through. We weren't happy with a little bit on the edge of it. We said, probably this is going on the side. So we put that to the side, and that's where we're going to build that up big. And it's going to be high compression, methanol, burnout car.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
So, personal question, if you could put this motor into any application that would be like your daily or your, what would it be?
Yeah, so as a daily driver, it sort of depends. I'll give you an example of me with daily drivers. I had a C2 Corvette, and I was driving it fairly often, and I like driving old cars as dailies when I can, when the weather's right. And I actually put a smaller cam in it. And the day I did that, and I got home and I felt good, I said, I'm finally getting old. I used to always get a car and put something more in it. Mm-hmm. It was a 327 C2, and it was kind of a cool car. And I had that from, I was using that when I was in America, living here, and for the summertime. In the wintertime, I just drive a truck, So yeah, for a daily, they would actually be good. The challenge you're going to get is on wet days, you're going to have traction control. And funnily enough, while all the ECUs, we've done them with Haltech ECUs and Motec ECUs, both of those can do traction control. None of our customers have asked for it, and I kind of like that. And the guys with the with the chassis in it. They were loading it up, and they said, "Oh well, we'll just do another pass past the trailer just to see how it goes." They just lit the tires up, but in like a second.
Yeah, because you've got Haltech's local to you guys as well, right?
Yeah, Haltech are awesome. They're a huge partner for us.
Are they in Melbourne or are they in Sydney?
They're in Sydney.
Okay.
But yeah, another great Australian company, and they're out of Lexington in the US. And they've got a really good support team in the US. They've got engineers here now too. They've got support here. Actually, one of the best companies for global support, because if you can have, as car guys, the time when you're working on your car is not always in business hours.
So I had a very, very early introduction to Haltech.
Yeah.
And that was a friend of mine was building a Geostorm and then later built an Isuzu Impulse. And Haltech was the only company that had ECU editing software for those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very primitive. It ran on DOS.
Wow, I had no idea about this.
Oh, yeah, it goes way, way back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was back then. I'm like, oh, okay. That was before HP tuners even existed.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. So ever since then, they've always been on my radar. And they build interesting stuff.
And they're a really great company. They've actually recently acquired Adaptronic, and as part of that acquisition, a guy named Andy. And if you're into tuning, and you've probably seen his YouTube, because he talks about tuning, not just the Adaptronic, but just tuning in general. Mm-hmm. And huge talent there. So now you think about that, they've got this team of ECUs. Clearly, if you've watched Street Outlaws, you've seen how fast they're running with these things. So they've got a lot of the traction control, back to traction control, which we don't use because we're all about the fun, right, with our engine. But if they've got all that skill, now they've got Andy from Adaptronic, one of the best firmware engineers on the planet for ECUs. That company's just going really, really well. And again, we're really proud to be partnering with them. And not just because they've got one of our engines with 4 Garretts that they're about to start getting up.
So Garrett with us earlier this week.
Yep. Yeah, the Garrett. I love how Garrett make symmetrical turbochargers, particularly when you got 4 of them. And talk about firing order. So our banks each like a straight 6.
Okay, that was going to be the next question.
Yeah. So as you see,
which accounts for why it sounds the way it does.
It does. It sounds like 2 straight 6s.
It doesn't sound anything like an LS motor.
Oh, it doesn't. It really doesn't. The only thing, we're on the Magnaflow booth. Maybe we should talk about what makes engines sound the way they do, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Firing order.
Firing order can, for sure. So when it's what makes a V8 sound the way we all love a V8. Yep. And it's because, as you know, with a cross-plane crank V8, you need to keep even firing order in a cross-plane V8, which is important because even firing order is important in an imbalanced engine, which all V8s are to one degree or another.
Most people familiar with an imbalance would be like a V6.
A V6, and then it's really a problem. You really want to move to even fire when you got bad
especially if you're
imbalance.
not a 60-degree V6. Anything under the 60-degree V6
absolutely
will shake itself apart.
So on this topic, we're an odd fire engine, but a V12 is very different. So a V12 is perfectly balanced. It's 2 straight 6s. Yep. One is not ever going to be able to unbalance the other one. It's always in balance. So I like to think about it as, why do you go for even fire? You go for even fire because if even going to odd firing on an engine that's already imbalanced just makes it worse. It's like turning one bad member of the band up, right? and it does. And so a cross-plane crank V8 has a slight imbalance, very slight. It's got a perfect primary and secondary imbalance on the crankshaft, but it's got a rocking imbalance.
Well, and
that's the big thing cancel each other out perfectly.
Ford tried to make about the Voodoo motor.
Yeah.
It was
it's got a secondary imbalance problem too, yeah.
Yeah, well...
And they've done a great job to get that commercialized
they have, but
well.
There's also a dirty little secret that a lot of those motors have been blowing up.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Look, I've seen that crankshaft design, and I was impressed they managed to get it to run.
There's a reason that Ferrari and McLaren keep the small displacement cross-plane.
And the
flat plane, rather.
Exactly. So when you go flat plane, not to jump all over the different types of engines and nerd out on this, but flat plane, so you got the secondary imbalance, right? So each, as you got 2 planes of crank per bank, it's rotating around, but you've got, think of it like a water skier going behind a boat. Mm-hmm. Going the same speed the boat, but the water ski is changing speeds. Well, that's what you get with a flat plane crank. So you got like 2 planes as it's spinning around. Right. The pistons, the speed of the piston moving up and down.
One bank is fighting the other the entire time.
Yeah, and so what you don't have is in a cross plane or a triplane, which is a V12 or a straight 6, the others cancel each other out. So as one's getting slower, the other one's getting faster. So imagine you've got 2 water skis and one's doing the exact opposite of the other one. And if you're counting total speed all the time, it'd be the same, right? So how do you overcome that? Well, they don't actually overcome that. In fact, of most flat plane V8s, they actually just go with a lighter piston to the point where it doesn't become a problem.
And a super short stroke.
And a super short stroke, less rotating mass, Tiny little pistons.
Over square, way over square.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the problem, all they're doing is they're building an engine to the point where it's not becoming a problem. And then what they're seeing is some of the advantages of flat plane, which is a lighter weight crankshaft, which spins up faster. Lighter weight rotating assembly spins up faster.
The crankshaft's physically probably a third smaller on a flat plane versus a cross plane.
Absolutely. And so if you take this, that's why, they're good. I've driven many a flat plane crank. In fact, the first car I got on with a flat plane, it took me a while. I kept thinking, there's something wrong with this. I had the car for a while, and I was like, what is wrong with it? Quattroporte.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
And I got a hold of this car because I really liked that Ferrari next gen engine.
Yeah.
And it's the cheapest way to try it out.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest way to try it out.
Performance bargain if you do your own servicing, people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're dealing with FCA problems with everything else in the car, though.
Yeah, and you can't get in the computer. Anyway, so I wanted to try one of these engines out for myself, and I've always admired them. So I got one, and for the longest time, I sort of felt, maybe I need to clean my injectors. Or maybe I got a plug. I know I just did the plugs recently, which is a pain in the ass in those cars. You got to pull the cowl off to get the back plugs. But other than that, what is it? It's just always, and then it triggered him on. I was like, I don't know how I was so stupid. I don't know how I didn't realize it is that primary imbalance being right and the secondary balance being wrong. Is I could just feel it through my foot. I can feel it in the car.
Off.
Yeah, and you can feel it. And now I've just ruined Ferraris and Maseratis for all the owners out there, because it's going to be like when someone points out a flaw in your paint job, they're going to notice that.
See.
But look, I love them and I love the sound, and don't tell anyone they sound like 2 4-cylinders going off.
No, they do.
Because they are.
But it's still a great sound.
It is. It's incredible.
And there's nothing wrong. Certain 4-cylinders sound great.
That's right.
I love the 4-cylinder that was in my Fiesta.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Fiesta ST. I love that car.
Oh, they are really great little cars. They are.
I had one built up basically short of long travel to rally spec.
It's basically, I reckon if I have one of them, I'd have to drive like a rally driver all the time.
You drive like an asshole 100% of the time when you're in that car.
I would say an animal, not an asshole. You can drive like an animal.
Yeah, you can.
Depends on which country you're in.
Mine was 240 horsepower, and it was a good
in a car that light,
good 150 pounds lighter than stock.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that car moved.
Yeah,
it's the perfect car for the canyons out here.
Yeah,
But alas, it's no longer mine. Maybe I'll have it on another.
What's your daily now, Chris?
Macan.
Okay. Yeah. They're cool. They're really nice.
Yeah, I bought a used one last year, and it's great because I paid half as much as the last owner did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to get all that depreciation. You let someone else have the depreciation.
Yeah.
That's how I am.
How do you feel about, it looks like the Z06 and probably the Grand Sport and eventually ZR1 are going to be on a flat plane architecture on about a 5.5 liter motor with turbos.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I was more interested in the fact they went to mid-engine for the Corvette.
Oh yeah, I mean that was obviously. Well, we should specify because somebody's going to get pissed. They went to rear mid.
Oh, is that so? Sorry, mid. Is that what we should say?
Oh yeah. Well, technically it is front. I've got a C6 at home too.
Yep.
And it is mid. It's just front mid.
Yep.
And the transmission's always been up. It's out back, but still. It's obviously a huge architectural change.
Yeah.
And a number of my friends have just got off of performance car of the year testing on that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's absolutely amazing."
Yeah. And a bargain. I mean, how did they do it? I don't know how they did it. I think it's incredible.
It's GM economies of scale. That and the argument I made for the better part of 3 years when people are like, it's got to be $100,000 car, and I go, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't inherently cost more to put the engine in the middle of a car than it does in the front.
No. So. Just requires redoing the whole car.
Yeah. But I think the interesting thing is there may actually, with that car, be room to fit one of your engines in there, whereas I don't think there's any way you could fit it into my C6.
Yeah. I've had a bit of a look at some of the side cutaway pictures, but it's a bit hard to tell because not everything's always to scale.
Yeah.
I'd like to do one if I can find a crashed one or do like the things like those.
Or you get a customer that really wants, because they're going to be able to sell them in the Aussie market now.
Yeah. That's as a Corvette person, I've always loved my Corvettes. I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
It's finally a right-hand drive version for the rest of the world.
Yep. Yeah, which has got to be a lot easier with the engine behind the driver, right? Because
a lot less
to mess with everything up the front.
I mean, I've watched. There's a gentleman. I'm not quite sure where he is, but he's a firefighter in Australia. I want to say he's in like Brisbane or something like that. And
awesome, thank you, firefighters. I grew up on a farm, and you saved my farm more than once.
Yeah, they're generally pretty good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, he does work out of his home garage. He's got a great YouTube channel, where right now he's building, I believe it's an Alpha with a Ferrari motor in it.
Cool.
But he did this absolutely gorgeous wide-body 911 entirely by himself.
Yep.
Literally every lick of work by himself,
wow.
down to the interior. And I watched him do the right-hand drive conversion on that, and even then, that was a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, in order to register in Australia, you have to convert, don't you?
Oh, I'll tell you a story about that. So I had a C3 Corvette, 74, and...
Did that come with the mullet?
I didn't get a mullet. I probably could have at the time. Mullets were really out at that time. So and I've never been one to conform. So maybe I could have gone with a mullet.
See, here's the thing. I only say that just because I've got my Vet and I like Corvettes.
Yeah.
The C3 is the black sheep.
That and the IROC are the two things that are like automatic mullet machines.
So I digress again. When I was in college, one of our American exchange students for Loyola was talking about stuff. I was like, I love American cars. I'd love to have like a white Trans Am. And he goes, people who have those cars, like the same kind of people who listen to Primus are going to love Primus.
I love Primus.
See?
Absolutely.
So maybe white Trans Am's right up your alley there, Chris.
No, not so much. But yeah, it's definitely people that like stuff that's a little weird.
Right.
Although I think the Trans Am here is not quite as weird. It was fairly mainstream here.
It was a bit more mainstream, a bit more affordable, and less wasting money on some plastic fantastic. But anyway, so I like C3s, I always have, and when I got the C3 and I finally got one because they're hard to get in Australia because they never came out there, right?
Yeah.
And I had to do the right-hand drive conversion, so my brother and I are working on that, and we had to find a rack and pinion steering that would work, and we made up all the brackets. We finally got it done, and right when we got it done, they changed the rules. If your car's over 25 years in Australia, you're allowed to leave it left-hand drive.
Oh.
So it was admittedly a little bit better when you say passing a truck, or because my American cars that I have there now are the other way around. So they're left-hand drive.
Right.
And if you're in the car by yourself, it's hard. If you got someone there, you can say, hey, is anything coming? It's just a little bit better.
Yeah, I was, when I used to do smoke.
It's just a little bit better.
Yeah, I was, when I used to do Smoke a Tire with Matt.
Yep.
He had the R32 for a while.
Oh, yeah,
and, before he got rid of it, I was for Christmas, I was gonna buy him one of those little grabber hands that you give to like your grandma when she needs to get something out of the cupboard.
Oh yeah, how do you even go through like toll booths and stuff?
That's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I haven't come across that yet.
We've got the speed pass ones, so that would help a little bit. But anytime you actually got to throw change in or something,
go through drive-through and get a burger or something, you have to crawl across your seats.
I think at that point you're like, I deserve this punishment. I think the real world one is if you're in a right-hand drive car, other people's reactions on the road.
Yeah. I mean, if you're around other car people leaving a show or whatever, it's like nothing. But when you're just out in the wild,
there's great videos of people in right-hand drive cars getting pulled over by the police going, shouldn't this be on the other side? Is this legal? But I guess the R33 is legal here now. And
I think you probably have a year type rule there too. I mean, I always had historic stuff mostly. So
it's 25.
You can't get away with anything.
25 years is when you can import something into the States.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous. It has to do with that entirely just grew out of Mercedes and BMW not liking gray market vehicles in the 70s.
Yeah.
Because they were cheaper to buy in Europe and import here than it was to buy them here.
Yep.
So of course they lobbied the government and went, no, this is illegal for no real reason.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. So now we have this silly rule.
Yep.
It's always interesting seeing those. I'd love to get it. I'd love to have a Skyline for a little while, but I wouldn't want to have it as right-hand drive.
Well, that explains why the price of Skylines went up suddenly just recently.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden they just went crazy.
Yeah, well, the U.S. market can finally buy them.
We were clamoring for them.
And the RB engine's awesome.
Yeah, it's one
of my favorites.
Do you think they're expensive now? Wait until the R32 goes up.
This is a car that you literally purchase, sit in, and it's effectively perfect. It hits all the marks that you need for a vehicle.
Yeah.
What amazes me, though, is the fact that R35s almost don't depreciate in the market. They're still super expensive because they kept increasing the price on them to now it's a $100,000 car here.
Wow.
Right? I don't know what they're going for in Australia at this point, but
God knows.
Yeah, they're $100K
Can't
here.
afford one.
Too much.
They went from high 60s here to 100,000 plus now.
Yeah.
And that's like the stripper model. That's not even with all the options. So now all the ones that are 10 years old, they're still almost as expensive as they were when they were new.
Yeah.
Insane. Absolutely insane. So back to the V12.
Yep.
So you've established you want to do this, you created your prototypes, right? What kind of time are we talking about from going from that prototype to actually having a block that's cast.
Yep.
Getting the cylinder heads done. Are you making the cylinder heads in house? Where's the crankshaft coming from? All that stuff.
Yeah, so blockheads, crank and cam, like I said, are the things we have to do, right? Yeah. And we got Clive for the cams, so got that one covered.
Yeah, Clive.
Clive.
Yeah,
Shout
so
out.
we've been working with the foundry for around 15 years, doing cast manifolds for the rotaries and various other products that we do down under. And so when we started making the patterns to do the V12LS based off some of our prototypes, that was really not that complicated for us. It sounds difficult, and it is a big casting. There was a lot to learn, and we had to do some pours and cuts and things. But it's back to, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's an engine. Yeah, it's a big pump. So, but that said, there's a lot to think about and getting your water jackets right and all of that. So, yeah, we started working closely with our foundry and working with molds and prototyping that and making a few revisions here and there. But that really wasn't too bad. The real challenge we had was in the cylinder heads water jackets. They were the hardest things to do in a traditional mold and mold and sand. So we actually have gone to printing sand using 3D printing.
Yep.
And we do so it's a pretty cool process. And this is a big part of our business is actually rapid prototyping. We 3D print into sand, and the glue passes over it like a 3D printer would 3D print a plastic thing like you've all seen. You can buy.
Yeah.
Buy those pretty cheaply now. But this machine prints it into the sand, and then it sets overnight, and you come back the next day and you click your foot on this thing, and it slowly moves up like inch by inch, and you dust it like an archaeological dig.
You're sitting there with a chip brush just dusting it very slightly.
Oh yeah, because if you break it, you break it. Now you can glue your bit back on, but if you just make it a bit round off the edge, you're getting a round edge
well,
there.
there's 24 hours of work thrown away.
Exactly, and it does. It takes hours and hours to print.
Oh yeah.
So we sit there and we do the little archaeological dig for our molds. And so if you're on our website, there's a few shots of us doing that. You got to wear a mask so you don't get sick from the sand.
Is it actually sand, or is it like a
silica,
a plastic material or something like that?
It's not plastic. It is a sand based.
Okay.
It's a special sand. Well, that's what they told us. It's like, why does it cost this much a bag?
Why is it $1,200 a bag?
Yeah, you can't just go back down to the beach and get it.
We made it ourselves.
And you can't reuse it, particularly not for our parts. I think if you're doing some really rough castings, you could.
Like a green casting sand?
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
You get a slightly different finish on these. You get the green casting gives a little smoother than this.
Okay.
But it's still pretty damn good.
Which isn't bad for a water jacket, though. You want surface area.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's not a problem. So, anyway, we did that just to sort of overcome some challenges, but we're still doing that. And as far as we know, it's only us and I think Mars Motorsport do their water jackets that way. It's very, very advanced. So it's probably the only rocket science thing. Still probably not that advanced, but yeah,
it's actually. I'm sure you're in SolidWorks, just like aerospace engineers are. So.
The fact that you had to build it from scratch and this was your solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the time there were only 3 of these machines in the world, so we had to, chase down and get that. But that's a whole other story. But anyway, so that's the complexity, I would say, and everything else then is machined. At the moment, we've used a few different people to make heads. But
it's your design entirely.
It's
right?
all our design, and so then we'll give the CNC place. There's only the challenges we also come across is line boring the blocks because they're longer than LS. So there's only a few machine shops that have a large enough line borer.
Yeah, because everybody's set up for a V8 or maybe a straight 6.
At max, something that's that
and
size,
we've done enough now to the point we probably will buy one, but we basically, there's 2 places in Melbourne that could do a Cummins, and so they can do it. Yeah. So we sort of find those places and make those relationships.
You mean you're not going to get one of those dingleberry looking ones that goes to the on the end of your drill?
Oh yeah, we can do a dingleball rebuild. Or yeah. No. I think if there was one of our customers for the amount that our engines cost, saw someone with a dingleball making one of our engines, they're probably a little bit.
And if you haven't seen one,
off.
If you guys haven't seen one, go look at Cletus McFarlane's channel. They make good use of it. But those are motors that they're like, yeah, this is a motor that we're going to blow up in 3 weeks, so we don't care.
Yeah, we just got to get it smooth enough to work.
Yeah. What those guys don't realize is how much they're like giving us, the whole community, for R&D research. It's like no one's going to go and do that except for those crazy guys. So they go and do it. I suppose you could say that same about us. But,
well, then you get
they're more nuts. I think. Yeah.
Have you ever met Tom Nelson?
from
Nelson Racing Engines.
So Tom, last year we received an award, and so did Tom in Masters of Motors.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've always admired his work. I tell you, the thing I admired most about him is the level of finish that he gets.
Well,
it's
I mean, they were the first to do the mirror image housing on the turbos.
They were.
He was
revolutionary at the
time. He was so anal retentive about design, which I appreciate. I use that in a good as a positive trait. That he's like, no, we've got to do our own housing.
Yeah, and look, while we build engines, and because we design the engine, we're obviously capable of building it. I look at engine builders like that, and it is a different skill set. And we do use a company in Melbourne called B&R Engines, and Brett from B&R, he sort of like steers us in the right direction. He'd be the equivalent in Australia of someone like Tom. He's done
well, you guys do
a lot of very big.
You guys
big
do
cars.
dyno drag racing and everything down there, stuff that we don't even get into. It's the power levels that they're making on Barra engines and on.
Oh yeah, I heard you're a bit of a Barra enthusiast.
I love Barra engines.
We've got a shelf of Barra heads. Up on and I kept saying to my brother Shane, he's my business partner and all this, and he's our lead engineer, and he's like one of those real mad scientist kind of guys. We keep saying, what are we going to do with these heads? He's like, oh, we'll do something with them one day. We have thought about doing a 12, but there's not really the right customer for it at the moment.
I want to see a Barra powered, like a Lincoln, or even like a Fox body powered one would be very cool. Although that probably exists in Australia already.
Yes. Check out Drag Week this year. I don't know if they won their class, but they did very well. A couple of Aussies. Don't know them personally, but a couple of Aussies brought a Barra engine over, put it in a Fox body.
Yes, because it was the guys that work with Marty and Moog.
Okay, yeah.
They're
Sydney guys.
Yeah,
probably
they're
from Sydney.
they run.
They're
like
good. I know the show. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, I believe they run guys. I think they're turbo shop focused on like Hondas and stuff like that.
They've done some really cool things.
Yeah, they're great fabricators. I've seen the work that they've done with those guys. It's impressive stuff.
I think the show's going pretty well too. So
awesome. I mean, all the luck in the world. It's not like we're all competing with each other.
No,
stuff,
I think that's really good. The way content has gone too is there's more people making content at home, and more people showing off their wins and failures at home, and it's really opened up for it to be okay to. Not feel so bad if you build a car that has a problem or whatever, because you're just like everyone else.
It's a much different mentality. Like when I was a kid, you see, professional builders and stuff like that, and you only see the success stories. So the idea of going out into your garage and ripping an engine apart, or even just doing your own maintenance, didn't exist.
Yeah.
And on those, of course, the way they show it on television is that it's always done in 7 days exactly.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, and they always make the deadline. I was like, that doesn't always happen.
No, never.
But, that said, we shipped our engine to Factory 5 2 weeks before and SEMA.
Did you ship it down to Africa or did you ship it here?
No, we shipped it straight to Factory 5 in, what state are they even in?
They might be in Massachusetts.
I don't know. I hope I put the right name on the thing, otherwise I'd drive across America. Anyway, so Factory 5 got the engine 2 weeks before, but the cool thing about that was all of our stuff's CAD designed, all of their stuff's CAD designed.
So you already knew.
So swapping CADs back and forth, and why this was awesome, I wish every one of our customers gave me a CAD file of their car, because we put our engine in the CAD file and we could see, hey, that our sump in one spot is going to be the lowest point of the car, and I don't want the sump to be the lowest point of the car. So we just made him a new sump. It's like that would fit.
I was going to ask that. What do you do about an oiling system on there?
Yep. So that we need about 12 liters.
Okay.
It needs a lot of oil. These things, it's big engines, big capacity engines need a lot of oil. And look, you could probably get away with about 10, but a few more liters of oil is good.
With that volume, that's probably a wet sump system. Right?
Yeah, in that.
Because if it was a dry sump, you'd probably be 16 or 18 quarts.
Well, you could put more, and plus it's also easier. And if we had an oil cooling system as well, because once you need more than 10, otherwise you start to see it thin out after full heat soak.
Yeah.
So what we found in our testing, we've also done testing with different radiator sizes as well, just because you need to be able to tell your customer. A good example of that is we took multiple northern cores, met that at SEMA a couple of years ago, bought up the various size of cores. They do a really nice 3-core, and then we'd plumb them in and see which one's sitting still, not moving, so, with just a straight up regular spal fan on it, what ones could sit there indefinitely. Because cars, it's not like, have you guys ever had an old Mopar?
No, but I've worked on them.
Yeah. They'll overheat if you sit them still 5 minutes.
Or a brand new Z06.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Z06s when they came out, because they put a 1.9 liter Eaton blower on them.
Right.
They were basically, the volume wasn't enough and the cooling wasn't sufficient. So after a couple laps on the track, around the track, It was overheating.
Yeah, and people expect their car to be able to just not overheat. So we need to be able to say, here's the size radiator you need. Yeah, I know. It always gets me. It's like, were there just no cars on the road and people were never getting in traffic jams back in the 60s?
When the current generation WRX came out, I did that up and down on the Snake in Mulholland a few times. I don't know if you've been out there.
No, but I know of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over
I'll come visit you and you take me out in something.
Yeah, it's so did that, and within going up and down twice, it was already boiling over.
Really?
On a brand new WRX.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, yes, this was,
Yeah, but those ones were not built to vent. Like, it was the same issue with the Evo 10s when they first came out. It's just there was not enough airflow in the engine bay to actually cool anything down.
Yeah, actually, I was just talking to Rob Freddy about that. One of the things that we've also found is getting the air out of the engine. I know everyone's found this, so it's not rocket science again, everyone knows this, but getting the air out really easily makes more difference than you could imagine. If you can get a path for the air to flow out other than under the car and around,
that's why you see all the vents coming out of these plastic shields under the cars now.
That's part of what I'm dealing with on my C6 right now, is actually because from the factory, the way that's set up, it's got that stupid air dam under the front, which creates positive lift. But then if you remove that too, you lose the low pressure zone behind the radiator.
Yeah.
And, you're cooking the engine bay. So that means now I got to do venting in the engine bay and probably also venting through the fenders in order to get rid of that positive, air pressure.
Yeah, and absolutely.
It's that kind of stuff is never, ever considered.
Yeah.
Or even on drag cars that leave open fenders and stuff like that, you end up having to seal them up.
So we're going to have to do a nerd alert at the start of this podcast. Has this been the nerdiest one so far? We got?
I mean,
that's good.
For
that's good
this
to hear.
It's definitely one of the more technical ones that we've had over the last.
We haven't got that bad.
Nah. So Fuel Cult is basically a new podcast that we started off the heels of my last one, Hooniverse. My co-host on that, basically just timing didn't work anymore. He's a family man, and it's just it's on hiatus at the moment. We don't know how long. And I said, well, it's time to do another one. And of course, I used to do Smoking Tire, but we got into some real deep ones. I had Gail Banks on a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
And you can dig it. This is tame compared to talking to Dale.
Oh, yeah. Just go by his booth.
Yeah.
I've happily sat through, I should say. I don't want to make it sound bad. I've really enjoyed some of his seminars. He's a very, very talented guy. And I also, he's made me think, right? So everyone quotes their engines on horsepower. We do it. Everyone, you got to do it. Oh, so that great engine right there, 750, and it made 764. We backed a few timing down, made 750, so that's how we quote it. But Banks would tell you, well, drive it up a mountain and tell me if it's 740, right? So I was just like, okay, that's awesome. So the way he thinks about it is so much more accurate and scientific, but I just don't think... I wish everything you got that was quoted in a Banks way, right? If everyone could think the way he did, people approach problems very differently.
Pure engineering and science behind this stuff. I mean, in a large part, he is one of the major reasons that we have such proliferation of modern turbocharging. He was the one that helped work out a lot of that stuff a long time ago. Yeah. And he's also partially responsible for all the crazy Kiwi jet boat stuff too.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
God, I love those.
He was
awesome.
One of the early
cool.
pioneers behind that. And then he dropped that on me one day. I'm like, you've done everything, haven't you?
Yeah, he's a smart guy, and industry's very lucky to have people like that.
Yeah, it's
those foundation builders.
Yeah, I wonder how he feels walking around SEMA, because I think one of his pet peeves is when people put the intake air filter
in front,
or right above the headers and things like that, and
nothing like
right behind the radiator and things like that. And
we've
all done it at times when you got no choice. There are times that it's happened, but I don't know how I walk around SEMA, because about half the cars have got some sort of
well, it's like you were saying
something
earlier,
that Banks wouldn't agree with, because he's so accurate with his thinking.
It was like you were saying earlier, is the engine for a number of these cars is the afterthought.
Yeah.
Which I get it. If you're a chassis shop and you're a paint shop, you're a body shop, that's not your thing, and you have a customer that wants a car that just runs.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's cringeworthy sometimes.
Yeah, and you touch on that. That's exactly why we exist. We're here to offer this next level product, and it's been working well for us, to offer something for people who don't want to have an afterthought of an engine.
What's next after SEMA?
Yeah.
Oh, what's next after SEMA? Okay, I wish I could talk about the brand that we did this for, but as I mentioned, we did some rapid prototyping. We've been doing some castings for an OEM supercar. that's coming out. So I'll make sure I shoot you through some details of that.
Okay, that would be appreciated.
Using our 3D printing technology and some really, really amazing stuff. It's another 12-cylinder. It's going to rev to 9,000 RPM. Have around 1,000 horsepower, naturally aspirated in the low 8-liter range. So very incredible.
I would love one of your engines, but one, it wouldn't fit in my car.
And this other one won't too. It's got a bigger ball spacing.
And two, they're a little on the pricey side.
Yeah, they definitely are. Oh, yeah.
They're for crazy big budget builds.
They are. They're, like we said, we're talking about pushing a car into SEMA as $1 million car.
You don't even own one of your own engines.
No, I don't.
At this point.
We will see. The Ute
You'll have it. You'll have it. I get that. But like that's
just mounted in the back.
That's not uncommon. Like I had Batim Barisha on the other day. I don't know if you know Batim. He runs BBI Autosport out of Huntington Beach.
Okay. Yep.
Famous Porsche shop. He's like, I can't afford most of
some of the
stuff
stuff
I'm working
they do.
on. Or I had Stefan Papadakis on the other day, who's doing that great breakdown of the current Supra, and he's like, this is a big investment. He's like, this stuff is not, money doesn't fall off trees when you're running the shop. That's
absolutely.
That's the thing
I mean, running business
because
you can invest it back in and do other things and things you want to do. We did have one for quite a long time that we ended up sending to the US for PR reasons, but we had it in our Kia van. So in the early days, when we first had a lot of castings come through.
I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
It went viral in Korea because it's Kia, right?
Yeah.
So it was really funny. It was all of a sudden we were like, Google alerts come up in Korean every day. You're like, what are these people talking about? So we took our Kia van for work. So the first batch of engines was coming through with the real castings. And we said, we got to put a lot of street miles on these before we even thinking about selling one. So we said, well, what could we do? And Australians' modification laws are really tough. We actually only just got the first one engineered just now, in an Australian street car. One, because there's less people building them down there. And it's in a Camaro. Really nice build we were involved with, and was really proud.
And you got a lot of weird things with anti-hooning laws and stuff that,
So what we did is we said, well, what would be covert? So we took the white Kia van that we used for the foundry runs, and what mid-engine is that, sir? It's under the seat.
I mean, the only one I could think of is, that's obviously a mid-chassis mid-engine, but it's kind of like a Toyota Previa.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. So we put it under there, and again, terrible air filter placement. The internet just went nuts on us over there. It was like, look, we're just trying to put miles on the thing.
We just need to get
we drove a shop
You needed
truck
something
around.
fit in, which is a tall order in and of itself.
Yeah, and the chassis was strong enough. You could definitely feel it get up when it got up and go. So, we drove that around for months and months as our work vehicle, and no one was wise. And it would cut loose, like the back end, just like you have to be really, really careful.
Well, that and with the engine in the middle, that thing probably wants to spin like a top too.
Well, it could. We didn't crash it.
Yeah.
But one thing that happened with the van is once Shane accidentally chirped the tires. In Australia, you get a ticket just for a chirp, just the slightest sound.
You can get that here too. Yeah.
And there's some other Commodore or something kind of like hooning looking car behind him. Cops pull that guy over because like they don't think it's a van. So if you're in Melbourne, in the Dandenong area and you just got pulled over, I'm really sorry.
I got a ticket once, or almost got a ticket once on PCH in Malibu, and that there was a beautiful Ferrari 280. Many. I mean, there's probably 6 or 7 left in the world at this point. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and I don't realize there's a cop behind me, and my vet is ungodly loud.
Yep.
Because I gave
in
it
the
to
best of ways.
I gave it to before I had my relationship with Magnaflow, I gave it to another company, and they used it for a prototype. So it's stupid loud and sounds like a trophy car.
Yep.
And or a V8 supercar, as it were.
Yeah. Like a trophy truck.
Yeah.
They're loud.
Yeah, it's so I had that, and I was doing under 3,000 RPM, and the cop pulls me over for exhibition of speed. And I go, I'm in
exhibition of speed. What's that? I'm showing you how fast.
That
proof of concept.
That's it.
proof of concepting my vehicle.
Yeah, it's that's an actual thing that they can write you for here.
Crazy. So, how fast were you going
on that? I don't think I was really doing any more than 30 miles an hour.
Whipping a whole 15 miles
an
an
hour. So you're sort of showing off
no, I wasn't
an anti-showing off rule.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But I wasn't even doing that. I was just, LS3 off idle in first gear, and first gear on the vet is super tall.
You're
not going that fast.
Yeah.
It was, So I argued with the cop for a little while, and it was just finally, he's like, fine, go.
I would have put him in the passenger seat and said, just watch.
Well, he had the thing is he had no proof.
Yeah,
that was the difficulty.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Those laws they happen here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys have got so much more freedoms and personal liberties in America. It's awesome. Like, you can drive pro street cars on the street here. I love that. I mean, it's just incredible. You can drive a 6-second street car on the street legally.
Sort of.
So long as you tote the line enough.
If it's older than 1975, yes.
Yeah.
If it's not here in California specifically, you're screwed. That said, I was just talking to another YouTuber that was like, "Oh,
we're in Nevada."
Yeah, I know.
And I'm from Australia.
Yeah. Well, I don't count it because I don't get on a plane to get here.
It's all right, Chris. I'm joking.
Yeah, no,
so you just drive? It's a nice drive. I've always thought that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Three and a half hours.
Do Fear and Loathing Las Vegas drive?
Oh yeah, somewhere outside of our
show.
the bats started coming in. So, yeah, it's it's not a bad drive. We do it in the middle of the night too, so it's real easy. I did it once many years ago in about 2 hours and 50 minutes. Coming back from Vegas on a Friday night in the vet.
Okay.
And I was in 6th gear and 120 plus the entire time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See?
That was good
Freedom.
fun. Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. And the great thing is that's beyond the statute of limitations. So
for the podcast.
Yeah. Well, no, in case somebody in law enforcement looks at it later. It was many years ago.
Very good.
But anyway, we've got to wrap up. Where can everybody find? I mean, obviously it's on your shirt, but we have listeners. So
sure. Yeah, go to V12LS.com to look at our products. And if you're into Instagram, at V12LS. Yep. And we're on Facebook as well. Just search V12LS there.
Great branding. Very easy.
Easy.
Matt, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much for making it work. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's I really wanted to talk to you. This was a priority. So, and I have to thank our gracious host Magnaflow for having us here on stage, giving us the space to do this, and basically entertaining us jackasses. So, and then my wonderful host Patrick Tackett, thank you for joining me as well. And
anytime.
This is the last episode for the day. So, SEMA Day 3 done
in the books,
and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much.